All right, we're live again on YouTube. Let me get my page up here. Sorry, it was a little bit unannounced, but as you should know, we do this every week. Same time, same day. It's Thursdays at 5:30 Pacific time every week. So even if I don't announce something, you can come at that time and something will be going on. Excuse me. So what's going on today? Well, first I'm going to get a drink of water. And then wow, the sky is so blue right now. Autumn came in, the sun crossed the descending equinox, and this autumn rushes in. See, this shows you what cardinal signs are like. All the signs that are at the equinox or the solstices they lead. That's what a cardinal sign does. It leads and it sets a new direction. So all of a sudden the weather is beautiful and all autumny. Okay, so the theme for today is Amshas, a very important part of classical. Hey, thank you. Somebody came over from Astrology Hub. Dean, thank you. Babushka Somi, nice to see you. So, all right, so the theme for today is what are the Amshas and the Vargas. This is thought to be, nowadays popularly thought to be a uniquely Vedic thing, but it's actually not uniquely Vedic. It's all of the classical forms of astrology. And really this is the difference between Vedic astrology and so-called Western astrology, is just that the Indian thing is much more closer to the way the Western thing was 12 centuries ago, 15 centuries ago, because India didn't have huge breaks in the astrological culture where it was gone for a couple of centuries and then had to be restarted. So it's much more consistent to what it used to be. So this concept, today's subject, Amshas and Vargas, the concept is ubiquitous across all of the classical forms of astrology. Hellenistic astrology. The Babylonians were doing Dvadash Amshas, 12 divisions. The Greeks, not the Greeks, what are they called? The Egyptians, they were doing trachas. We get the trachas from the Greeks, from the Egyptians, the division into 3. They have bounds, which is the same as the Pamsh chart in Vedic astrology. So it's actually a universal astrological concept that we're going to look at today, even though we'll use the Sanskrit names for them, Amshas and Vargas. And what I would like to do is first explain what they are and then talk about how to use them with questions and, ongoing in each part. And when we talk about how to use them, I want to focus on the simplest ways to use them. Okay? The simplest, most reliable, basic yet powerful ways to use the Amsha charts. Not really long, convoluted techniques, but I'm sure you'll have long, convoluted questions. So I'll answer some of those too. Okay? So let's start out with what they are. What are these Amshas? So you see that I have that cookie, the cake thing cut into pieces. You know why I have that? Because I'm very, very hungry and I love cake. Nope. Because that's what an Amsha is. Each one of those little pieces of the pie, of the cookie cake, is an Amsha of the whole cake. The whole cake is called a Amshi, and the little pieces, the cuts of them, are called Amsha. Fragments of a whole. Delicious fragments of a whole. Now, what does that have to do with astrology? Well, as you can see, actually, then this cake has 8 pieces, but if you just cut a cake with 12 pieces, then you would see, well, the 12 signs themselves are 12 amshas of something. Of what? Of the sun's orbit. The sun's apparent orbit gets divided into 12 amshas. One of them is called Aries, one of them is called Taurus. But don't stop there. Since you're dividing things, you can keep dividing things. So the concept of the Amsha in astrology is, hey, we have these 12 30-degree segments. Let's subdivide them further. Just like you can divide Canada from America from Mexico. But that doesn't mean that in Canada you won't also have some different divisions, and in the United States you don't also have divisions, subdivisions within the United States, subdivisions within Mexico. And the further you go into the subdivisions can get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, right? So that actually living on one street can make a difference between living on that one street or living on the next street makes a difference to the neighborhood that you're in. You don't have to change a country to make a big difference in your living conditions, right? So astrology, the zodiac wheel, has that principle built into it via the concept of Amshas. Let me show you a picture. But so far you get it? Simple so far, right? An Amsha is a piece of a whole. It's not going to be able to exist without the whole. This is a special thing about that is how it's different than this cake. The special thing about the definition of an Amsha is that it doesn't exist without the whole. It's a part of the whole. Babushka, why D9 is specifically used for marriage? Let's talk about that when we get to the second part, where I talk about how to use them. Let's first talk about what they are, and then how to use them. Now, let me show you the picture of a chart. Okay, so here I'll show you. I need to find it. See this chart? This is my chart. So you can see your familiar zodiac signs placed around the wheel. You can see Leo, you can see Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. And then you can see some nakshatra names overlaid on top of the wheel, right? But look at the outside edge. Let me zoom into one for you. Let's zoom into this Scorpio one. Or let's zoom into one that has a planet. We'll zoom into Libra. So you can see that some of these nakshatras are currently coinciding with Libra. That's an overlay. Let's not talk about the nakshatra part. Let's talk about these amshas. Amshas mean a integral part of a whole. So these are amshas of Libra. All these things along the outside of this wheel illustrate to you where the amshas are in Libra. So you see there's one. The Libra starts here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then Libra ends. So this is, Libra has been sliced into 9 pieces, like the cake. Instead of 8 pieces cake, this cake has been sliced into 9. Each slice is the same size. That's the way it happens for almost all of the amshas, except for the bhamsha. There's one which has unequal divisions. Okay? But in most cases, the slices are always the same size. In this case, it's 3 1/3 degrees. So what you get here, and then look what it says. It says, all right, well, the first amsha, the first part of Libra, is also Libra. So this is the Libra section of Libra. It's like this is Washington, D.C. in America. It's like this is the America part of America. And then it just proceeds in order. Here's Scorpio section of Libra. Here's Sagittarius section of Libra. So it's letting you know that, hey, every 3 1/3 degrees of Libra is a bit different. It's not all the same Libra. If you're in the first 3 1/3 degrees, then you're deep in Libra. It's called Varagottama. You're deep into the sign. Everything about the sign is Libra there. But if you move over to the next 3 1/3 degrees, then you're in the Scorpio part of Libra. So now you got a mixture to think about. You have something to interpret now. Right? And then you have a Sagittarius segment of Libra. And so in this way, these are called the amshas. Is it clear? Anybody have a question about this so far? What these guys are or how they're made or anything like that? Hang on. You guys you don't want to... I know your problems. I know the problem that you have is you're not patient for understanding knowledge, and you want to go directly to things that you think that you need to know. And then you think, why is he doing this intro of teaching me this stuff? I just want to hear about what this thing means. But if you have your patience and understand what an Amsha is, then you'll much more deeply and easily understand any specific question that you have about the Amsha. So stick with this. I'll answer the presentation today will be, first bit is about what are the Amshas and Vargas. Second bit is how do we use them. All right, so look, right, you can put Venus doesn't have a debilitation Amsha inside Libra. Isn't that interesting? Because Libra is Venus's own sign, so that's an interesting thing. So you can find out interesting things about the specific degrees within a sign. Like, oh, look at Venus over here in the Pisces Amsha of Libra. That will be where it's exalted in its own sign. The Navamsha would be exalting Libra because it's Pisces, and then the main sign is Libra. So it's really Venus is really supported, and then on top of that, this nakshatra that it coincides with is Chitra, which is very compatible with Venus as well. So wow, Venus was really happy over here. What degrees is that? That's 3, 6, 10, 13, 16. So from like 16 degrees and 40 minutes to 20 degrees of Libra is a very special place for Venus. And so if you understand the Amshas like that, you get to know the degrees of the signs better. This is a very, actually really important way to use the Amshas, to understand the difference between the degrees. All right, Garrett's asking about Pushkar Amsha. I do believe that it's just a benefic, but I don't think about Pushkar Amsha. Sorry, I know it's a rage. Whatever comes out on certain YouTube channels and becomes a rage, and everybody wants to talk about it, but I don't use Pushkar Navamshas. Okay, so you got no questions about this. Now you don't have to just make it into 9 divisions. You can take a sign and split it into half. If you split the sign in half, then you get something called hora. Each half lasts for 1 hour, rises over the ascendant for an hour, so it's called a hora. You can split it into thirds, and you're going to get 10-degree segments within a sign. In fact, I have a graphic somewhere that shows them all lined up. And the classic combinations are 2. The classic divisions are 2, 3, 4 is skipped. 5 is used, but it's not equal. So 2, 3, unequal 5, 7, 9, 10, 12, 16, 40, 30. 30, it's called 30, but it's more like the 5. 16, 45, sometimes used, and then 60. And sometimes 24 and 27 are used. But the main divisions are 60, 9, 7, 10, 12. All right, so here's a couple of questions we got. Iowa says, so padas are something else? So pada means a segment. It means a place where you can... Pada literally means a place where you can exist. A place where you can put your foot. So it also... Pada refers to a foot. So it's just a segment. Padas are the segments of nakshatras. You can see that there's an interesting thing is that Navamshas are 3 1/3 degrees in length. Nakshatras are 13 1/3 in length. So if you put that means that 1 nakshatra is exactly equal to 4 Navamshas. For that reason, the Indian tradition started to bind the Navamshas to the nakshatras, creating a sidereal zodiac, and saying that the nakshatras have 4 important divisions, which is not to be found in the Vedanga Jyotish, in the oldest book on how you calculate nakshatras. So padas are not exactly something else from the Navamsha, but padas are the concept that arises as a result of the fact that there are 4 Navamshas exactly fit inside 1 nakshatra in a sidereal system. it so happens that today, with the Ayanamsha the way it is today, it also is they're almost exactly aligned to 4 padas. But not the same padas that they were thousands of years ago when the sidereal system was codified. Let's see what other questions we got. Is that why I have sun? Yeah, look. So if you got the sun, this is a very interesting question from GFM. So he says he's got sun at 21 degrees in Libra, debilitated, and is in Aries in Navamsha. So this is an interesting thing. You know, the whole concept of the sometimes a debilitated planet isn't really that bad. Sometimes an exalted planet isn't really that great. This is your answer. This is the real answer to that question. So take, for example, the sun in Libra. It's supposed to be debilitated. Well, all right, but the sun at 21 degrees of Libra is not the same as the sun at 2 degrees of Libra, which is not the same as the sun at 14 degrees of Libra. Why not? How can you sort out what that difference is? One of the best places to go, your first stop place to go, is look at the Navamsha that it falls in. So if the sun is over here at 20, well, I don't know if it's 21, but if the sun is over here in the Aries Amsha, the Aries segment of Libra, then although it's debilitated on the surface, although it's debilitated in some practical way, because the D1 chart is the most apparent way, the main chart is the most apparent thing, but in the inner nature of it, in the Amsha of it, it's exalted, so it can't be that bad. Oh, look at this. Eddie has a question. So since 9 is so important, what does that mean for Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces? So watch. I'll show you the definition now, Eddie, of how the Navamsha is calculated. It's almost exactly the same for every Navamsha. So knowing how a Navamsha would be calculated, you could do the same thing. If instead of dividing it by 9, you divide it into 10 or 14 or whatever you want to do. 16. So let's find Aries. Here we got Aries, right? So the rule is you divide a sign into 9 segments, and then where Aries starts, you start with Aries. You see how the first Amsha of Aries is Aries. And then you go in order, so that by the time you get to the end of Aries, if you've made 9 divisions, you're at the 9th sign. So Sagittarius will be the end of Aries. So Navamsha is very, very harmonious with the main chart, because Aries is a fire sign, and it will fit 3 fire Navamshas inside it. And then the Taurus will be an earth sign. It will fit 3, but not 3 of any other element. And Taurus will fit 3 earth signs. Gemini will fit 3 air signs. That's one of the things that's beautiful about it. And also, Aries is a cardinal sign. So, the first Amsha is the same. Taurus is a fixed sign. So the mid Amsha is the same. See, this is Taurus, is the middle Amsha of Taurus. The Gemini is a dual sign, so it's at the end. It's the same as the way the sun's path goes actually in the sky. There's a lot of wonderful things about the Navamsha that make it particularly important. So he's saying, well, what about if there's only 9 in a Navamsha, then how about signs number 10, 11, and 12, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces? Did they get the shaft? No, see, it just keeps going in order. So Taurus doesn't start with Taurus, it starts with Capricorn, and Taurus winds up being in the middle of it. Right, so that's how you just keep repeating. And now, when I show you the difference between an Amsha and a Varga, this will be important. Nina, you have a question? Eddie Rosario, okay, right. What does it mean to have no planet pada 1? I'm not going to answer, I don't know. Why are some numbers like 8 skipped? That's an interesting question. So now he's asking, like, okay, how come we have a singular division, that's the main birth chart, and then we can divide it into 2. That's the hora. Then we can divide a sign into 3. That's the trachon. So how about 4? Why was 4 skipped? And then 5 is not skipped, but it's weird. 6 is skipped. 7 is used. 8 is skipped. 9 is used. 10 is used. 11 is skipped. 12 is used. 13 is skipped. 14 is skipped. 15 is skipped. 16 is skipped. It's something about geometry. Why are these numbers skipped? It's something about geometry. And this will become apparent too when I explain to you what the vargas are. what a varga is in relationship to an amsha. You'll see that this is all about geometry. And so it's something like, take for example a Fibonacci sequence. So what is the Fibonacci sequence? Right, it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. So that some numbers are skipped and the distance between them starts to increase. Right? So there's some why does Fibonacci skip some numbers? Because there's something about the geometry that it's talking about which skips those numbers. So it's something about the geometrical shapes which these amshas are illustrating that the other ones don't fit in. Of course, these days with computers, people can try anything they want. Or if you're patient, and have pencil and paper, you can try anything you want. But the sages have said use 1, 2, 3, 5 unequally, 7, 9, 10. They give you a list up to 60. So Sachita has a question that will be good for later on in the session. Somi also has a question that might be good for later on in the session, but she says, can you give some light on Varagottama planets, especially debilitation? So, right, let's look at Aries, since we're down here. Aries, what planet loves to be here? The sun loves to be in Aries. It gets exalted. So if you put the sun in this segment of Aries, where it's a Libra Amsha, it's not going to be as happy as if you put it over here in Aries. If you put Saturn over here in Aries, it's going to be debilitated. But if you put it over here at this degree, where the Libra segment is, then it's not going to be as debilitated. It's going to be a part of life which Saturn is exalted at, even though in the overall, on the surface of things, Saturn is debilitated. There's a part of life in which each Amsha relates to a different part of life, which I want to explain later. And then the Navamsha is the core part of your life, the core being, the person that you truly are and you won't ever stop being. And then you'll gradually more and more figure out. So if you got a planet that's exalted in the Navamsha, that means that whatever else this planet represents, at the core, it is exalted. It's trying to give you some blessing. Or if you have a debilitated planet in the Navamsha, it means, hey, even this planet is maybe exalted on the surface, there's an area of life in which it's really weak, and you should know about that, and you should concentrate on that and fix it up. All right? So, and now how about other things that are not as extreme? Like, how does Varagottama apply? Let's say we have Mars here. Mars is not exalted in Aries, it's in its own sign in Aries. But still, Mars could be over here in the Cancer segment of Aries. In Revati, also it would overlay with Revati. Mars could be in Cancer segment of Aries, where it's going to have a real weak spot. It's because it's debilitated in Cancer. Or it could be in the Leo segment of Aries, which it likes. Sun and Mars are very friendly. They're both fire signs. Or it could be Varagottama. It could be in the Aries segment of Aries. It'll like it even more. Now, how about, what if you took a planet like the debilitation, or something, a planet that doesn't like being in Aries? What if you put him in the double Aries? That will probably make it even worse, according to the theory of the Varga Vimshopaka, which is how you calculate the overall dignity of a planet. The more times that the planet is undignified, and the worse it is overall. But another way of thinking about it is, at least it's more consistent. The more consistent the planet's sign is, like if the planet is in a whole bunch of air signs, then it's consistent. And consistent things are easier to work with and deal with in your life. So one nice thing about Varagottama, even when it's the Varagottama of an undesirable situation, is that at least it's consistent. You can figure it out, rely on it. It's not going to evade your discovery. It's consistent and consistently happens. Letitia wants to know, she's got lots of doubts about D2. What is the real one? So the question here is, there's two schools of thought about how a D2 should be calculated. Remember how I told you to calculate An Amsha, I said, if once you learn this, you can calculate any Amsha. You just make your divisions of the sign, start at Aries and with Aries. Right, so here Aries is the main sign, then the first Amsha is Aries. And then you go out and you get your Navamshas. If you split it into 10, you do the same thing. You just split your signs into 10, start with Aries at the beginning of Aries and go in sequence. That works for almost every single Navamsha. But there are two which are strange. The two are the Bamsha, the bounds, which is the fifth, sometimes called the Trimshamsha, and the hora, which is the two, splitting the sign in half. So Letitia is specifically asking about hora, which is funny because in Japanese we say hora to mean, hey, look at this. Hey, look. Hora. So the hora, there are two theories on the hora. Is it represents yin, yang. It represents masculine, feminine. So the one side of the sign, the one side of a male sign, the first side of a male sign is masculine, the masculine side of it. The second half of a male sign is the feminine part of it. The first part of a female sign is the feminine part of it, and the last part is the masculine part. So it goes back and forth. So you'll say that's how you interpret the dignity of a hora. So you'll say, okay, the sun is in Aries in the first 15 degrees. The sun is a male planet. Aries is a male sign. The first 15 degrees are male. The sun is going to be really great in this chart because it's all supported. Its manliness is supported by the manliness. Its yang, I think, is supported by the youngness. Its masculinity is supported by the masculinity. But if you take the sun and you put it in Taurus in the first 15 degrees, well, it's a male planet, but it's in a female sign and a female hora. It's going to be weakened. If you take a female planet and you put her in an all-female setup where she's in a female sign and a female hora, that strengthens her. So that's one way of using hora. And that's where you'll see the hora drawn out as just two triangles. They'll just make a square, put a line across the diagonal, and it's just two triangles. They put some planets on one side, and they might even say Leo on one side to mean the masculine side, and Cancer on the other side to mean the feminine side. That's one way of doing hora. It's useful. It's very good. It can show, and it particularly shows where the planets have their basic fundamental stability or not. Male planets and male signs and male horas have super great stability. But when the genders are wrong between the planets and the signs, once wrong, not so bad. Twice wrong, bad. Once right, okay, good. Twice right, very good. That's a basic way to read a hora chart. But there's another way to calculate a hora chart, which is exactly like the Navamsha. You just split it in half and then go. So you would split Aries in half and say the first half of Aries is Aries, the second half is Taurus. And then the first half of Taurus is Gemini, the second half is Cancer. And you keep going. And that's also described in old classic astrological texts. And it makes a chart that you can read just like a 12-house horoscopic chart. So there are two systems. There are two ways, and there's no reason why you have to pick one over the other. You should use them both. Haribo Chris. Matthew wants to know if you read a Varga like a natal chart. Let's save that for the second half. The quick answer is yes. And I'll show why. I'll show how you get from these amshas to charts. Kiro, does this apply to transits? What are we doing here? I got my scroll got messed up. Does this apply to transits or just placements in the natal chart? It's the zodiac. The zodiac has these parts in it. So anything that you're using the zodiac with, this is going to apply. So it's going to apply to transits. If you got Saturn translating the first 3 degrees of Aries, it's a shitty time. But if you got Saturn over here in the Libra section of Aries, it's a better time. Or if Saturn is stationing, what Amsha does Saturn station in? Okay, yes, it affects the stations. It affects the natal as well. This is too specific. What happens when a debilitated Sun and an exalted Saturn together in Libra in the Dashamsha? It's a very specific question. I'll try to maybe answer that towards the end of the class. Odatana says, is this method good for determining a chart if you don't know a birth time? It's not particularly good for determining a chart if you don't know a birth time. Yeah, oh, I see what you mean. Is this good for birth time rectification, figuring out the birth time? Yes, this is very important for figuring out the birth time. Especially these Navamshas, they're still pretty big. They're 3 1/3 degrees. But when you get smaller and smaller Amshas, you're going to get the position of the ascendant. The planet is like Saturn, they move real slow. So you can't really use the planet's Amshas to rectify birth time. But the ascendant moving through the Amshas goes real quick. So like D6, the smaller Amshas, the higher numbers, D60, D45, D27, use those to make a judgment upon whether it was this minute or that minute of the birth. Cardinal Drama, doesn't it mess up the Navamsha calculation if the padas are linked to the nakshatras and not the sign? Yes, of course. Okay, no, get the terminology right. Padas are a division of nakshatras. And the reason why they were invented was because of the fact that the Navamshas exactly coincide with them in size. In the Vedanga Jyotish, it says you can divide a nakshatra into as many things as you want, just like the way we're doing here with the signs. It doesn't say that there's only 4 and that 4 are particularly important. So padas are a division of nakshatra. Amshas are a division of the rashis, the signs. So Cardinal Drama's question is, doesn't it mess up the Navamsha calculation if the padas are linked to the nakshatra and not the sign? So basically, though, what he's asking, or she's asking, is, doesn't it mess up the Navamsha calculation if the Amshas are linked to the nakshatra and not the sign? And the answer is yes, definitely. Like I said in the beginning with the picture of cake, these are slices of a whole, right? This is why the nakshatras don't get divided into your subdivision charts too. You know that big thing now that that's all popular because the big YouTube channels are talking about it, that you have nakshatras inside your Navamsha, different nakshatras inside your Navamsha. It's ludicrous because the Amsha is a part of something that the nakshatra is not a part of. The Amshas are divisions of the Amshi, which is the Rashi, the sign. Right, so like all the definitions of the Amshas are based on dividing the sign. Babushka, I'll answer your question about D9 in a second. Thanks so much, Matthew. 9 of Owls. Let's see. Thank you, Jean. All right, so let's go forward. So I wanted to explain to you what the Amshas are. I think you know what they are now, right? Let me put it to you in a sentence. The Amshas are sections of a sign. That's it. Just like a cake has slices, just like the United States has states, the signs have little portions inside them called Amshas. That's their slices. That's how you can know that they're not part of the nakshatras, okay? Now, let me explain to you what a varga is. Excuse me. Let me explain what a varga is. Amsha is a slice. Does anybody know what the word varga means? It's used in many, many, many contexts. Like in the Sanskrit language, all the groups of consonants which are produced in the same place in your throat are called a varga. Ka. Kaga, cha, ja. That's a different varga. Ka is one varga, cha is another varga, ta is another varga, ta, and pa. Those are the 5 vargas. So in pa, you got ba and ma. So those are all the vargas on the lips. Then there's teeth vargas. Ta, da, na, la. Those are your tooth, dental varga. So what does varga mean then? Well, in astrology, what does it mean? Well, or you can just say, like a lot of times they'll call a group of people a varga. In spiritual circles, they say, what's the guru varga? Which means what's, like a way of saying parampara. What's the, what group of, what school are you in? What's the guru varga? So what's a varga in astrology? It's not a part. The amsha is the part. You're looking at amshas on the screen right now. Those little guys down here. Let me show you what a varga looks like. Now you're looking at the Navamsha Varga. This is the Navamsha Varga. These little doohickeys right here on the outside wheel are the amshas. But this little puppy right here is the Varga that's made from the amshas. So no, it doesn't mean subdivision. Amsha means subdivision. Amsha is the division, but Varga is the collection. Just like I got a collection of consonants that I can make on my lips. Pa, ba, ma. There's another one too. Pa, ba, ma. Sa. No, sa is dental. Anyway, just like there's a collection of consonants you can make in your lips, there's a collection of stuff. It's called a Varga. So how is this Varga? Let's look at this, okay? This is my chart. Let's notice here that we got Jupiter and Venus together in Gemini. And then let's try to figure out why. Okay? Let's go look at this. This is a picture of the actual amshas. This wheel right here. Let's find Jupiter and let's find Venus. So here's Jupiter and here's Venus. Let's zoom in on Jupiter. It's in Libra and it's in the Gemini section of Libra. And let's have a look at Venus. It's in Virgo. And what part of Virgo? Oh, it's in the Gemini section of Virgo. So even though they are in different signs, they're in the same subdivision of different signs. So what a Varga does is it collects everything that's similar together into one place. Right? So this is a Gemini right here. Jupiter's in a Gemini. Here's another Gemini over here. Venus is in a Gemini. To make a Varga chart, we're going to collect them all. Anything that's in any Gemini Varga is going to get collected into one Gemini Varga. So that's why you get, in the Varga chart, you get Jupiter and Venus together. Look at Saturn and Rahu. In the main chart, they're nowhere together. They're not close together. Rahu's over here in Pisces and Saturn is over here in Taurus. Why are they together in the Navamsha? Well, let's go ahead and look at them. Here's Rahu. It's in Cancer. Right? It's in the Cancer Navamsha, just barely. And where's Saturn? This, by the way, is why I think that degrees in Navamsha are okay. Because as you can see, there's also a span of degrees, a ratio. Rahu is at the beginning of Cancer Navamsha. And Saturn, where's that baby? Saturn's over here. Oh boy, look, he's also in Cancer Navamsha. So what the Varga does is the Varga collects all the amshas into one place. Anything that's in Cancer gets into one Cancer. And then it says, look at the ascendant. This ascendant is in Capricorn, but it's in the Leo segment of Capricorn. So because the ascendant is in Capricorn, then the ascendant of that Varga chart, because the ascendant is in the Leo Amsha, then the ascendant of this Varga chart is going to be Leo. And sure enough, if we look at that Varga chart, it starts with Leo. Leo is in the first house. Leo's the first house. So that's how you construct a Varga out of the Amshas. That's what these things are. Now, this also goes back to the question about why are certain things skipped and how does this relate to geometry? And how does it relate to the meaning of the Amshas? Because if you look up here, look at what is really interesting. You may say, well, that seems a little bit random. Saturn and the moon are in totally different places. Why do they go together in this Navamsha chart? It's just so random. It's not random at all. It means that they're at a specific geometrical relationship to each other, which is significant. This is the way that we Vedic astrologers use the Amshas is very akin to an even more fully developed Persian aspect system, where the square aspect means this, the quincunx aspect means this, the semi-square means this, the trine means this. Different geometrical relationships mean different things in that system. We have that built into our astrology system in our Amshas and Vargas. It's because this one's going to skip, right? Rahu, there's one Cancer in between Rahu and Saturn. So if you do your degrees, you're going to see there are 45 degrees. So, or something close to like a 45 degree angle. So Navamsha is very important because of that angle is very important. And the angles between planets are revealed by the Amshas. You can see it I don't know if you can see it kind of more clearly with Venus and Jupiter because they're close in the closer Amshas that don't skip. Okay? So that's how you make a Varga out of the Amshas. Make sense? Any questions about it? Right, so we can also talk about how we're going to use these babies. How do we use these charts? And let's talk about how we use the charts. Let's talk about how we use the Amshas independent of the charts. I've already introduced you to a super important way. This is the most important way to use the Amshas independent of Varga charts. Is that you, like the way that we've been talking about since the beginning, you can say, well, okay, Venus is in Libra at 5 degrees. It's in Scorpio too. It's not the same. It's different than if it was at 2 degrees and it's also in Libra. That's the most important way to use the Amshas, is to help you get more definition of the degrees within a sign. Now, use your common sense. If you're in the United States, then you're in the United States. Maybe you're in Iowa, maybe you're in California. And certainly Iowa is different than California. But they're both the United States, and there's a lot of things that are in common about both because of the fact that they're both in the United States, right? Same thing for any country. So like if you're in India, but you're in Calcutta, it's very different than if you're in Mysore. Super different. But there's a lot of things that are very much the same because they're both India. So the same thing here with the signs and their Amshas. This whole bit of space over here is Libra. It's all going to be like Libra. But in the context of Libra, there's going to be differences. There's going to be differences. So this is a Gemini. This one, where my Jupiter is, it's a Gemini segment of Libra. Where my Venus is a Gemini segment of Virgo. So they're not under the same conditions, but they have something similar, and it puts them together in the Navamsha Varga. Subhigya Adhikari asks, is it good to have Venus and Jupiter and Pisces ascending together in Navamsha? You shouldn't even have to ask that question. You should just trust the theory. The astrology theory is that Jupiter is in its own sign if it's in Pisces. Venus is exalted if it's in Pisces. It should be good. They're both great. You have two great planets. Then you mentioned about planetary fights. That only happens if they're on the same exact degree. All right. So other ways to use the Amshas. And then we can start to take any kind of random questions. So each different Amsha represents a different kind of geometry and therefore represents some different theme. So let me introduce you to some of the themes. The one that we've been illustrating now is Navamsha. The theme of Nava, or 9, is very similar to the 9th house. Okay, so the 9th ninth house is about. Don't just rip up all the things that you've pull up all the things that you've heard, random bits of information about the ninth house, and think that's what the Navamsha is about. Think about the essence of the core of what the ninth house is about. The ninth house is the Dharma. That's what the ninth house represents, is Dharma Stan. And now just don't think about every little quote that you've ever heard about the word Dharma. Try to find out what the word Dharma really means. Dharma refers to the essential nature of something. Now, when you might say, wait, when I was in college, they told me Dharma means religion. Or when I grew up in India, I thought Dharma meant morality. So why is this guy saying that Dharma means the essential nature of something? So it's just like Dharma, the Dharma of fire is to be hot. If fire is not hot, then it's doing something wrong. It's not even acting like fire, right? So in fact, fire cannot not be hot because that Dharma is so fundamental. But now let's say the Dharma of a student is to study. So if that student is not studying, they're doing something wrong. That is the definition of immoral. And that's the definition of religion. It's to ensure that people are encouraged and inspired to do their Dharma, to do what it is that they're meant to do. So Dharma is not, that's righteousness. Righteousness means doing what's right. What's right means doing what you're meant for. So if you're a student, then righteousness means studying a lot. If you're a mom, then it means taking care of your kids. If you're a father, then it means taking care of your kids. If you're a wife, then it means taking care of your spouse. If you're a husband, it means taking care of your spouse, right? If you're an astrologer, it means studying astrology and doing a lot of astrology. That's Dharma. Everybody's different. If you're a computer programmer, then your Dharma, the righteousness, the morality, the religion, the religious deed is to do your computer programming, to study your syntax or whatever it is. So Nina is saying about purpose, right? Does Dharma mean purpose? The purpose that you have is based on what you are. If you're a guitar string, then your purpose is to be on a guitar and make music. But if you're a cotton string, then you have no business going on a guitar. That's not your purpose. That's going to be a sin. That's going to be a deviation from morality. It's not going to help anything for a cotton string to try to go on a guitar and get tuned up. The cotton string wants to go over there and be in a shirt. That's what its purpose is. Because of what it is, it has a purpose. So, for example, go back to the student analogy. You're a student. Your purpose is to learn. So study. Okay, it's nothing to do with the soul's desire. It's what the person is in this incarnation determines their Dharma. Soul's desire is very remote and high. Background, very background. Soul's desire is simply to have fun. And then all of the things that we do are various attempts to have fun. All right, so the ninth house is about Dharma, which means what is this thing really? What is anything really? So that's why the ninth house will really be good for education. Because it will be all about trying to figure out what things really are and understand things deeply. The ninth house and because it's about what things really are, it's about being true to those things. Truth means being true to what it really is. So you get the ninth house will be about morality, Dharma principles, purpose, righteousness, teachers, people that help you understand what things are. Right? So the Navamsha is like that. It's all about the core, the true essential core of what you are. So when you look at planets in the Navamsha, you'll see this is their core. This is what they really are. The D1 chart shows me what the planet does on the surface. But the D9 chart, the Navamsha chart shows me this is what this planet is. And this is and when you look at the chart as a whole, as a Varga, this is what my purpose is. This is who I really am. You know? So if you look at my chart, a couple of things. This guy's probably, his nature is to be entertaining. I mean, look at that. Look at the 11th house. Jupiter and Venus and Gemini in the 11th house. His purpose is to entertain. He does a lot of entertainment. His core nature is to entertain. He likes to entertain. You look at the 10th house. Well, the guy's probably a leader. He probably doesn't work with teams, right? 10th house is career. Mars and the sun in career. He probably works on his own. He probably does this is a type of person who's well cut out. Their core nature is very well cut out for doing their own business. See? So it goes, you read this just like a regular chart, but you understanding that the scope of what I'm reading here is this is the person's core nature. The core nature of the 10th house will affect their career. The core nature of the 11th house will affect their socialness, etc. Sitra Ramalingam says debilitated planets in the 9th house means you will not follow Dharma. Don't be so simplistic with the things like that. All right? Don't be so simplistic. I have a debilitated moon in the 4th house. So does that mean that my heart doesn't follow Dharma? It doesn't mean that at all. Why would be so simplistic about that? The debilitated planet means here's a problem. Right? So and you got to be less, you have to embrace what I'm trying to teach you if you want to get what I'm trying to give you. You got to understand that you're still thinking about Dharma in terms of following rules or regulations. And I just told you that Dharma is the core essential nature of what a thing is. This other stuff about following morality and being righteous is a derived meaning of the word Dharma. The true meaning of the word Dharma is this is the core fundamental nature of the thing. Water's Dharma is wetness and liquidity. Fire's Dharma is heat and light. Sugar's Dharma is sweetness and fattiness. Right? So every object, every vastu has its Dharma. Go deep. Stick with me on this. Quiet down your minds. Turn down your minds, the chatter in your minds. You have to practice yoga if you want to learn astrology. There's so much chatter in the mind. You're not even able to focus on the information that's being given. Quiet down the chatter. Open up the mind. Just open it up. Relax it. You're not the controller of the universe. You don't have to conquer this information. Just sit back. Open your mind. Seep it in. So here, there's a debilitated moon in the 4th house. So what does that mean? He's got kind of a sad dude, right? That's the basic nature of this person. He's kind of sad. And look at me. I'm sitting here. I am sitting here complaining and getting grumpy, right? So there you go. That's my core nature. It's kind of sad somehow. Although I got Jupiter and Venus in the 11th house and Gemini. I love to entertain people. How the heck does that work together? Well, look at me. That's how it works together. I'm entertaining. Or not just me, but look at anybody. There's plenty of people like that. That they're kind of grim. There's a grim thing to them. There's a depressing thing to them, or a sad thing to them, or a dark thing to them, but it's very entertaining. Right? So don't just be simple like, oh, if you just go simple with this stuff, you're just going to come up with crazy simplistic stuff. You have to go deep. If astrology is not a bubblegum science, you got to be able to go deep into every single part. And the other thing about astrology, which modern culture does not support, modern culture supports always trying to find something new, repackage it, put it in a new package, sell it again, give us a new thing, What's the next thing? When do I get the next update? Oh, cool, I got an Apple update. Oh, my app's updated. Great. Oh, great, a new update. Oh, good, a new patch. Blah, blah, blah. Give me a new update. When's my next update? And so that whole culture comes into astrology, and we keep thinking, oh, I like astrology, I want to learn it. I want to learn something new. Got a lot of questions to ask. Want to learn something new. Let's have a new system. Let's have a new theory. Give me Nakshatras and Navamshas. Give me some new junk. Give me this. I need new. That's not very compatible with what astrology really is. Astrology is something that only a quiet mind can penetrate. Astrology is only something that an open, deep mind can penetrate. And it's not going to be mastered by going out like Alexander the Great and trying to conquer new theories and understandings. It's mastered by trying to become one with the fundamental science of the thing, what these things symbolize on a deep level. The sun represents Atma. That's all you need to know. That's all that you need to know. The moon is Manas. That's all you need to know to understand everything about the moon. Now you just need to go deeper and deeper and deeper into understanding what Manas is, what Atma is. Well, okay, I'm going to answer questions from here on out until the end. Janvi, Rashitulya Navamsha. What does it mean? Explain to me what it means. Paula Rocket, did I learn Western astrology first? No, actually I didn't. I still have yet to learn Western astrology, to be honest. But what I've discovered is that the type of Western astrology that I would learn because of the type of person that I am, it would be the original form of it, which is practically identical to Vedic astrology. So it's practically the same thing. Matthew says he's got Ketu in the 12th house Aquarius in the D9. Does that make me an inventor or a mad scientist? No, but you know what it does, Matthew? I don't know why you would say that it has something to do with inventor or mad scientist. Maybe because the 12th is fantastic. It's fantasy oriented. It's visualization of things that are not bound to physical limitations. That's the 12th house, and Ketu is also very good with that. But rather than thinking mad scientist or something like that, using the right words is also very important in astrology. Ketu in the 12th house gives you fantastic imagination, deep imagination, and an ability to grasp spiritual and occult things. The fact that it's in the Navamsha means that that's a part of the core of who you are. It might not be the person that you are on the surface that everybody sees, or the way that you actually go about your career and daily life and so forth and so on. But it's about the inner person, who you really are. There was an earlier question. Who asked it? Maybe it was Janvi. Asked why they use this Navamsha for. Oh yeah, I wanted to say, I got a little bit sidetracked by my venting. I wanted to also tell you about what the other Amshas are good for, or what the themes of the other Amshas are. And she asked, why do people so often use the Navamsha as if it's so important for marriage? The reason is because marriage is the primary sanskar, or sacrament, of religion. In fact, it's practically the only samskar or sacrament of religion which continues to exist in Kali Yuga. So marriage, therefore, is practically the only practical way that we enforce morality of some sort and religion. So if you're looking at a chart that has to do with Dharma, then it is particularly sensitive to marriage, because marriage is particularly an important practical implementation of Dharma, being a responsible person, doing what you're supposed to do. So the Navamsha does have a big bearing on marriage, but it's not the place to go to look for your love life, or necessarily your spouse or something. The Navamsha is the place to go to look at the quality of your commitment to a marriage, the ability of you to participate in marriage, in the contract, and fulfill the responsibilities and be dutiful. Okay. Now, let me also tell you what some of these other Amshas are all about, and then I guess we'll cut it off. Maybe we'll do another video sometimes with more like, here's some interpretations. Here's some things, like a lot of questions weren't answered. Like, what you could do with the Navamsha is you can say, well, the 7th lord of the Navamsha is in the 12th house. Another thing you can say is, well, Venus is with Jupiter. Oh, that's nice. In the 11th house. Oh, that's nice. On the subject of marriage, if you want to evaluate how the person's core, how does their core can be compatible, the core of this person, how compatible is it with the nature of marriage, the dharmic nature of marriage? Another thing you can do is you can say the seventh lord is the moon. Right? So where is the seventh lord in this chart? That's another thing you can say. And the other thing you want to do is you take the head planet, the planet which is the lord of the first house, and check that out. Whenever you're looking at the Navamsha, any Amsha, the planet that owns the first house is quite important. John V wants to know if we superimpose planets of D9 on D1. I've done that. I haven't done it in a while, but I've done that, and I think it's awesome. I think that 8 or 9 times out of 10 it reveals very amazing things. So I'm very favorably inclined to that theory that you can overlay the D9 on top of the D1 and get really useful information out of it. And as I said, I mentioned real briefly earlier that the reason why I do accept the theory of there being degrees in the Amshas is because, look, there are degrees. Here, this ascendant is smack in the middle of Leo. So you make a ratio and you can get the degree. Whereas this Rahu is right at the beginning of Cancer. So since you can, with using ratios, determine the degrees that the planet occupies in the Amsha, you can overlay the degrees. Now, I'll show you one other quick thing since we're here all together. See, a table like this is very useful. This is a table of Varga dignity, so you could take any planet and look for its strengths and its weaknesses if you know the themes of the Vargas. Right? So you could say, okay, this Venus is really great in 5, it's really great in 12, it's quite good in 10, it's quite good in 9. But it's got its weak spots in the main thing and in the 16. So that you can inform your interpretations of Venus based on where the planet's got its weak spots and where it's got its strong spots. That's a very useful thing. So to finish it up, let me tell you what all these Vargas are mostly about. Okay? 9 is about Dharma, which means it's the core nature of the person and how do they deal with their commitments. How well do they deal with performing like they're supposed to perform based on their core nature. If their core nature is, if they're a parent, how well are they at being a parent? Conforming to the responsibilities of that. That's Navamsha, the Dharma. 7 is very much more useful for knowing about love, life, passions, creativity. The seventh chart is, maybe you can say, like the 7th house, but I really think that it's a lot like the 5th house, because it's all about passion, creativity, love. So the Saptamsha is really going to show you, and it's more useful for modern relationships than the old-fashioned way of looking at it as like the commitment that we stick together. That part is still there, of course, in modern marriage, but in the modern world, even the marriages have become more like dating. So the D7 is quite important for any kind of relationship analysis, creativity analysis. 5th chart is called the bounds. It's unequal. The 5th Amsha is very good for seeing where you can have medical problems or where you'll be limited. So planets which are strong in the D5, they're going to give you prosperity in health and limitations, not be limited in those areas. Planets that are weak in D5, they're going to indicate medical problems or places where you've got handicaps or drawbacks. The 3, I'm going down from 9. 3 is like the 3rd house. So it'll talk about your ambitions, braveries, entrepreneurial spirit, go-getting spirit is the 3rd chart. 2nd chart is like the 2nd house, so it's going to talk about your stability, or the planet's stability, the stability that's in the planet. It's going to be stable or unstable. Then if we go up from 9, the 10th is like the 10th house, talks about your fame, career, success. 12 talks about parents, family history. 16 is like the 4th house. It's a multiple of 4. So it talks about your inner happiness and how well you enjoy pillows and comfy things, hot chocolates and teas and stuff like that, or how much luxury you have, and luxury on the outer side and inner happiness. And the 60 charts, there are divisions which are above 16, which have some bearing on like how much knowledge, how well you do at school. And there are charts which are just general, like the 60th chart has no specific theme to it. It's just a very finely detailed chart. All right, guys. So, thanks so much. I hope this was a useful. It's definitely incomplete. We haven't talked about it enough. So maybe we'll do it again. We'll revisit the Vargas and Amshas again, because I feel like the information is incomplete. There was a lot of questions. We could spend more time on questions. So maybe we'll do another one next week where we just take questions about Vargas. How about that? Sound good? Next week we'll do and examples of interpretations, maybe. All right, my friends. Or maybe not next week, because I have to do something that I feel inspired for. So if I feel bored, then I might not do it. What do you think? You want to do that next week? I was also thinking that at some point you need to get some philosophy, Vedic philosophy. Anyway, we'll figure it out for next week. Okay, I'll see you next week, everybody. Thank you mucho. Super hugs to all.